Yeah, we need to get some of these, and there's
FEMA Administrator Chris Wells said today that she acknowledged concerns that Florida, as was said, lacks response to the storm.
well, there you go. Welcome to Get Real America, where we're getting real there, seeing the Governor DeSantis down there in Florida.
Yes, we were. I'm Brittany Brown.
I'm Bill Edwards. Welcome to Get Real America, where we're getting down to the nitty gritty and give you the other part of the iceberg, where you just get the tip from the mainstream media, so to speak.
Yes, and I will say one of the things is most of my family live on the West Coast, Bill, and you wouldn't believe the amount of text messages and phone calls I got Friday and Saturday.
Well, I'm sure.
Due to Hurricane Ian, which didn't even bring Savannah, that much rain or even that much wind.
Got light showers. Matter of fact, at most of the Thursday night, it got the kind of rain. If we needed rain, it's the kind of rain you want. A very light showers, very soaking type rain.
No
that
thunderstorm.
came down. But thank God we dodged a bullet, because Ian was very, very naughty.
Yes, and our hearts go out to the people in Florida who definitely are suffering right now, and they're doing the best they can to get everyone back online. I believe they've already brought back 2 million people's power just since Friday. So
it is remarkable how well we recover now from these things. But it's going to be, of course, months, if not years, before they completely recover. And things will not be the same in many cases because when it came on board, when you get 155 mile an hour winds or better coming on shore, and then of course that storm surge, you see those boats piled up on top of each other in the marinas, and all those mobile homes that were just tossed around like toothpicks, and others, and also to the north of us up at Pawleys Island. Beautiful little community just south of Myrtle Beach, and then Myrtle Beach got hit. That was Category 1 that went there. The mayor of Pawleys Island was on yesterday and said that had they not had their beach renourishment project a couple of years ago, they would have been in real trouble. But as it was, they still suffered a lot of damage, and a lot of flooding went on in Myrtle Beach. But once again, you had those the next day. We saw the out there, saw the tractors, the scrapers, and everything else getting all the sand out of the roads and things of that nature. The pictures, I'm sure, don't do it justice from down in Florida. We're going out to what's the famous island that got wiped out there? You can't even get there now by car. You have to go by boat or helicopter. But Sabrina, I want to say Sabrina, and that's not right. But it's right off the coast of Fort Myers. And they were showing the aerial footage of that, and I was wondering why there were big road signs over the sand dunes. Turns out that wasn't the sand dunes, that was the road.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
The damage is just unreal when you look at it. And, I think, when they say evacuate, get out. I think that they've reported 76 deaths in Florida so far. Obviously, they're still in the process of cleanup and trying to make sure that everyone has been, attended to. But I think that there was a little bit of disappointment on how many people still did not evacuate when they were told to do so.
And those who stayed behind and survived said they wished that they had evacuated like they were asked to, or actually told to, as a matter of fact. So these storms are not nice. You can come, take what you need. We need to be prepared because we're in a hurricane zone all the time, 6 months out of the year. So half the year we're in a hurricane zone. And although they only come by every once in a while, it's which once. So just be prepared all the time as what you're going to take, where you're going to go, what you're going to do, what you need. Just be ready for these things because one of them's going to come our way. We were spared this time. Charleston dodged the bullet too. It looked like it was going to hit Charleston, and I moved on up and hit Pawleys Island and Myrtle Beach a little. And then of course it's still going on. It's still a tropical depression of some sort. Went into West Virginia, and there's still some aftermath from the fact that the rivers are beginning to swell in Florida now. So there could be more flooding coming along. And these waters are dangerous. And it's not just because there are snakes and alligators and everything else. There's bacteria and everything else in these waters. So for goodness sakes, don't go out in it.
Yep, stay safe out there. And, I think one thing is that comes out of this is that you can see that DeSantis was prepared. He did plan ahead. And, he was actually out cooking breakfast, which I thought was a good little clip that we have here.
Yeah, it was at Waffle House.
Tell you what, this is definitely good stuff right here.
Yeah,
You got that one?
that's ready too.
Is this ready, period?
That's ready.
That done?
Everybody's leaving now. Let me give you one more here.
No, I'm right-handed. This is the right hand on this
I'm
one?
right-handed, so this is just for the right.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Yeah. I think that's better.
So he was there feeding first responders, which I thought was great. And the guy's teaching him how to hold the handle, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I'm always amused at short order cooks and how well they do at those places, like whether it's Waffle House or wherever you happen to get your breakfast, and they have those open kitchens, and you can see these guys preparing the food, and it's just amazing.
Well, it's actually quite a talent to be able to do things that quickly and use the spatula.
Oh, it is.
I feel like for me it'd be like writing with my left hand, Bill. Not good.
I've watched the guys. We have one of the restaurants nearby. One of the restaurants that we have at one of the iconic places at Tybee Island is the Breakfast Club. There's always a line about a half a mile long to get in the place, so you're on a 2-hour wait. So just make sure, if you're not hungry when you get in line, you will be by the time you get seated. But these guys are gourmet chefs, and they were the ones I mentioned before that catered the John F. Kennedy wedding, Kennedy Jr. wedding years ago on the Cumberland Island. So these guys know what they're doing. But I watched them one morning, and where they take 2 eggs and crack them. I don't know how they do this, but crack the egg and put it down, and then and they've got it in the pan, and just do one of these things, and it flips over. I've tried that a couple of times, and it's the eggs wind up on the floor.
I was going to say
on
it
top
sounds
of the
really messy,
burner.
Bill.
Yeah, even though I'm a pretty good cook and I do all the cooking. But nevertheless, it is quite a talent that these people have, and hats off to them for all the great things that they do. So Governor DeSantis was so prepared, and the media, of course, trying to do anything they can to besmirch this guy because he may be president of the United States one of these days. If it's not the coming cycle, maybe it's the one right afterward. But he was, and this goes a lot back to his military training in the Navy. But he had, everybody in line, and you talk to any of the first responders, from the sheriffs to the EMTs, to the people who in the power companies. Like I said, we got something like there were over 2.5 to 3 million people without power in Florida. Over 2 million of them have the power back now, and it's just remarkable. The organization that went into this and how they're able to get to the people that they can get to right now. They're going to have to wait for the water to recede for a lot of others. My question is, Brittany, what do you do now? You've lost everything. Even if you're retired and you don't have a job to go back to, but maybe the people go back, there may not be a job to go back to because that was wiped out as well. What happened? How do you... where do they stay? Where do you rebuild? I know they have emergency shelters, but I can't even wander through in my own mind what would happen if we lost our house here in Savannah and had to start over again.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I think one thing that I do think happens in these situations, Bill, is that the community does come together.
Yeah.
And they will help each other to try and get, the cleanup done. And I think we'll also see a lot of volunteers, help with this cleanup. But I don't know where you go. Like, what do you, especially somewhere like Naples, it was devastated. So,
yeah.
There isn't even a building there for people to stay in. So I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe outer areas.
Yeah.
But a good friend of mine, Brian Mudd, that works at the iHeart facility down in West Palm Beach. His parents live in Naples, and he said they weren't impacted very much at all.
Oh, wow.
So there are, the media is going to show you the bad stuff for the most part, but the resolve of people is what's amazing to me. First of all, the newcomers, one lady said, we just moved here a few weeks ago from Colorado. didn't know what we were going to do. There was a couple that they interviewed that had that lived on their boat, lived on their yacht, that they bought. They were their house. They were burned out of their house in California 5 years ago.
Oh
They
my
bought this
gosh.
boat and they came over here to. And then this hits them, and she said, "Well, we're gonna rebuild. We're gonna get a new boat. We're gonna get this one fixed, or whatever." He says, and then we're gonna go to Key West or something like that. So that that's not out of danger either.
Challenge accepted, I guess, Bill.
But just the resolve of these people say, this is my home. I'm going to rebuild right here. I love Florida, and it's a nice, beautiful, sunny day now, and just getting ready to start over.
Yeah, I think you take it 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, and I think that you kind of just move forward from there. Especially, I saw like a lot of touching videos, and one of them was with DeSantis and this woman who had lost everything, and he just like gave her a hug. She was crying, but she's like, "We're gonna get through it. It's gonna be okay. It's hard right now."
The thing that's amazing, could the media wait just maybe just a couple of days before they politicize all of this?
Oh, I think that they politicized it before the hurricane even hit.
Oh yeah, they did. You got Joyless Behar, who gets paid. I mean, these people get paid. What gets me is that these people get paid millions of dollars to be this stupid.
Not only that, their ratings keep going down. It's like, why are they still on the air?
Yeah,
I haven't figured that out, Bill.
Yeah, I thought that we were supposed to judge television shows or radio programs by ratings, and if your ratings keep going down, you find something else to put in there, maybe somebody whose IQ is approaching at least single digits, as opposed to these doofuses that are on this show. But it's the View on the Arab Broadcast Company, the ABC, and she's coming on. She says, "Well, look at Ron DeSantis now. He said he wasn't going to worship at the altar of the climate change cathedral." And look at this big hurricane that's hitting his state now, and all this. He's a climate denier. So being a climate change denier is the reason that this hurricane is hitting him.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's almost like it's like, well, you deserve it kind of thing. And I think
Yeah.
that's a horrible, horrible thing to say, a horrible thing to do, especially when,
So California and deserves all these earthquakes and fires because Governor Gavin Newsom is an incompetent idiot.
yeah, I that's the thing. And you're demonizing a whole population of people that live there. Like, that's unacceptable. You choose to live in California, that's on you. If
Yeah,
you're,
some of these
you
people
agree,
down there were stupid enough to vote for Biden.
yeah, so, I mean,
So yeah, it's just
that's the thing. It's like, so people that voted for Trump deserve it, and people that voted for Biden don't. Like, I just think that we have got to stop putting people in these boxes of, if you don't agree with me politically, or you're not doing the thing that we think you should be doing, then you deserve everything bad that happens to you. That's horrible.
Yeah, but these climate change worshipers are just unbelievable. As one of the, I think it was Joe Bastardi, one of the big weather nerds of all time, was saying, like, in the last 50 years, 6 major hurricanes have hit Florida. The previous 50 years, 16 hit Florida, and that was long before even George Bush was the president.
Yeah, and the damage is worse these days, Bill, but it's because we build our houses there. I mean,
The 50 years before, there are 100,000, there are tens of thousands of more people, hundreds of millions more people in Florida than there were, and a lot more infrastructure. So consequently, there's going to be a lot more damage. I mean, it's just that simple. We mentioned last week when we were talking about Hurricane Katrina, why it got so bad. New Orleans has been hit by hurricanes time and time again, but it didn't have the kind of flooding and all that they had during Katrina, because once upon a time there was also 20 miles of forest from the Gulf to the Crescent City. And now most of that's been cleared out for something else.
yep.
And consequently, the storm didn't have anything to hit. So it hits New Orleans full force.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff that people don't fill in the gaps with, Bill, and that's one of them, is like how the environment has changed because people have made it change. And people like Nancy Pelosi and, these people that are very much into this climate change stuff have built their homes right next to the ocean.
Yeah, I grew up here, and I remember going out to Tybee where you could actually still play on the sand dunes, and there weren't any houses on the beach. They were across the street. So there's that. But fortunately, our friends to the north, our friends in Charleston, did not get the devastation we thought they might have. It went a little further north, and Nancy Mace, Congresswoman from this district in South Carolina, 1st District, was on last night with Trey Gowdy to talk about it. We'll hear from her next here on Get Real America.
When we get back.
I do absolutely agree that it's racist. It is a redux of Jim Crow in a suit and tie.
America has a long history of systemic racism.
You ain't black.
America has a pre-existing condition. It's called racism.
Senator Warnock believes America is a bad country full of racist people. I believe we're a great country full of generous people. Warnock wants to divide us. I want to bring us together. I'm Herschel Walker. I approve this message.
The last 3 years, Georgia's been tested in ways we could never imagine. And it fell to Governor Brian Kemp to successfully lead us during these troubling times. Georgia is still first in the nation for business. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in state history. Today, people come to Georgia to succeed, start a business, raise a family. Kemp has always backed the blue, stopping the radical left from defunding local police. He passed a tough new election integrity bill that, as the governor likes to say, made it easy to vote and hard to cheat. And while some during COVID-19 shut down their economy, Kemp kept our schools and businesses open while keeping Georgians safe. A long list of accomplishments: fighting human trafficking, increasing teacher pay, greater access to quality health care. A governor who works for Georgians. All of us. Governor Brian Kemp.
Let me tell you guys something. You know, every time I go out to speak, everybody want a sound bite. I'm going to give you a sound bite really quick. I'm sick and tired of people putting this country down. They want to ask me why I'm running. Let's be real. I'm sick and tired. You look at the economy, you look at the gas prices. You can't buy a grocery now. It's time for us to wake up. It's time for me to get out and fight. Because I'm gonna tell you, I love to win. I said, put me in the game, coach. I'm ready to play. If you ever seen me play, I can play. Have you ever seen me fight, I can fight. No matter how hard they come, how hard I can fight. I'm sick and tired of this. Tell your friends to get out and vote. I'm not here to be a politician. I'm here to be a warrior. Protect this country, protect our citizens, and protect our kids. No weapon formed against me shall ever prosper. Boom! That's it, baby!
I would love to see more of that Herschel out there on the trail.
Where is that Herschel Walker? And by the way, Georgia and Missouri played over the weekend in Columbia, Missouri. And Georgia got out by the hair of their chinny chin chin. I have a feeling when the ratings come out this morning, they're not going to be the number one team because they sure as hell didn't play like it. But champions find a way to win even when they're having a bad day, and Georgia came from behind in the fourth quarter to pull it out of the fire, so to speak. But I was watching the commercials. I didn't see a single Herschel Walker commercial. You've got the Georgia football game, the national champions, and whoever's in charge of the Herschel Walker campaign, a pox on both your houses because you're not doing a very good job. I see Isaac Warnock signs all over this town. I mean, up and down the highways.
Raphael Warnock.
And I don't see very many Herschel Walker signs anywhere except in my front yard.
Yeah, Bill.
It is unbelievable, and he's managed to go up, I think, by about 2 points in the polls, but that's still too close to call.
It absolutely is, and we've got to do all we can to hopefully get some good people elected and make some changes with what's going on with this inflation and crime, and the list goes on and on.
I don't know what it's going to take. Why anybody would vote for a Democrat when you see what's going on now with crime skyrocketing, with inflation skyrocketing, when you can't get when gas prices are going up, and you're not going and they just denied, I think, 5 regional contracts for oil just last week, in the last week or two. when we desperately need it, and they were, and these oil companies were denied drilling rights.
Yep, and I think, but people aren't following that bill because they're so concerned to be able to pay their bills. A lot of people aren't staying up to date on what's going on.
How can you not associate it with the people that are in power?
I don't know, when they're making you promises, Bill, of, you know, we're gonna give you more money, we're gonna not make you pay, you know, for this and that, and we're gonna give you a gasoline card for $300.
Everything's free,
Yeah.
and when if you have an electric car, which is the biggest boondoggle of all times, practically besides climate change, then you're never going to have to buy gasoline again. Where's the electricity come? Do you get a bill from Georgia Power or South Carolina Electric and Gas? Just wondering.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know what they're going to do. And not only that, the Democrat base, a lot of them do not have electric cars. Like they're not typically middle class people that are paying all these taxes, but they're also not the people that are able to afford an electric car. So this environmental stuff that they're also pushing on the Democrat side, I'm like, is that really, does your base really care about that? I know the elites do, but I just don't
Of course. They look down their nose at you. Take the people in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
The
list goes on and on, Bill.
Let me ask you this. So an electric car, the starting price is at least $20,000 more than a real car with a combustion engine. How much gas would $20,000 buy you? If you're supposed to be saving all this money on gas, you had to pay another $20,000 for your car, and you had to find a place to charge it up, and you were going to have to pay the electric bill, because the electric bill is going to go up when you're charging your car. I don't know if you realize that or not, but how much more? Let's say gas was $3.50 a gallon, and you have a 20-gallon tank. What is that? About $60 to fill up your car?
Yep.
Okay. How much does 60 go into 20,000? How many times could you fill up your car? So how much money are you really saving with this stupid electric car? And then in 4 or 5 years, when it needs a new battery and you have to replace that for $25,000 or $30,000, how are you going to feel then? And what about these evacuations that we've been seeing? Can you imagine if Florida was evacuating with electric cars? Because the electric grid has gone down, which means even if you come up to an electric charger, it's not going to have any juice.
Well, I also saw a tow truck driver. He posted something. He's like, this is what I do all day. I go and pick these Teslas up off the side of the road and take them to the charging stations. He's like, this is like the 6th or 7th one I've done today. I'm like, oh my gosh.
And this is something that the news media here in Savannah the news media, of course, one of their biggest powers is the power to ignore. We have 6 electric buses that have cost us taxpayers a little over, somewhere around $7 million. We have 6 of them. None of them are running. 6 electric buses for the Chatham County Transit, Chatham Area Transit, CAT, and none of them are running. They're waiting for some sort of part.
Oh, geez. I mean,
and
the stuff that they do doesn't make any
shortage.
sense. Yeah.
Big story this morning. Guess what else is a supply shortage of? And the people down in Florida trying to get back online. Power transformers.
Oh, yeah.
They're having trouble finding power transformers because we don't make many of them here. They're made elsewhere, and then we have to get them here.
So we need to bring stuff back to the U.S. because we can't rely on other countries, especially when you see kind of what's going on in the world. We have to rely on ourselves, Bill.
Especially our medicine.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Well, we dodged a bullet here in Savannah, likewise in Charleston. A little bit north, however, not so much the case. Nancy Mace, 1st District Congressman of South Carolina, was on with Trey Gowdy on Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy on the Fox News channel last night. And she talked about what happened in South Carolina, the South Carolina coast, and their progress from here. Looked like Patagonia.
We're going to come right back to that in just a minute.
Mm-hmm. So we'll get with Nancy Mace here in a minute. But speaking of politicians, this story just absolutely floored me. That and again, why are you voting for Democrats?
I cannot tell you, Bill.
In New York, you have Governor Nancy Hochul. You talk about an incompetent boobette. This woman is it. You were better off with Cuomo. So she has amassed an unbelievable amount of money for her campaign, and Lee Zeldin is
Hurricane Ian left
her,
a devastating wake in Puerto Rico, Florida, and South Carolina. The death toll is high, and this storm could wind up being among the costliest ever.
Okay,
South Carolina
and I think this
Congresswoman
is
Nancy Mace joins us now.
we're hearing Trey
Congresswoman Mace,
Gowdy.
thank you so
Yeah,
much
in the
for
background.
joining us.
Sorry
in the
about that.
background
Puerto
there.
Rico and Florida are
But
devastating. What's our coast, the coast
Kathy
of South
Hochul
Carolina like?
has amassed over
certainly Charleston
she's had
dodged a bullet on
donations of
Friday,
something
but
like
just north of here between
$21.6
Charleston and
million
Myrtle Beach, not so lucky.
in campaign funds from all this, from just a plethora of
highest
who's
storm
who,
surge since
and
Hurricane
so
Hugo,
and interest and
Welcome back
an
to
attempted
Sunday Night
bribe
America.
among
Hurricane
other
Ian
things.
left a
Guess who?
devastating
One of her
wake in
biggest
Puerto Rico,
donors is
Florida, and
the
South
nursing
Carolina.
homes.
The death
How is
toll
that even
high, and
possible?
this storm could wind up
Especially
being one of the
after,
costliest
why would
ever.
you, if you were in charge of nursing homes, why would you ever support them?
I don't know, but there's Nancy Mace.
Oh, there she
Maybe
is.
she could tell us.
Yeah.
Are devastating. What's our coast? The coast of South
And
Carolina.
there's Kurt.
Well, certainly Charleston dodged a bullet on Friday, but just north of here, between Charleston and Myrtle Beach, not so lucky. We had the highest storm surge.
Yeah,
since
I think we got the
Hurricane
freebest hook in the
Hugo,
Reba
and the images
Clavin.
of
Yeah,
clothes
I would say it's a Monday for sure here at Get Real America, and we're just being real with you that we're having some technical difficulties.
This is the live blooper reel, so there you go.
You're welcome. Behind the scenes of what goes into a show.
So,
and recover from Hurricane
but-
Ian.
but
Just
can you
as a
imagine
Category 1,
nursing
the images
homes?
were pretty devastating as well.
How could they support him, like any political person after what they did to everyone in the nursing homes, sending them back and
20,000 deaths.
Yeah,
Somewhere in the
that didn't
region?
need to happen, Bill. That should have never
No.
happened.
Should have never been sent back. So, that's an attempted bribe, and this is also using taxpayer cash. Her family is cashing in on this as well. They're building a new football stadium in Buffalo to the tune of $850 million, and it just so happens that her husband is an executive of the company, the corporation that gives the vending rights to the stadium. Well, isn't that special?
The thing is at least we can, but that's the thing, at least we can look at this stuff and see what is happening and dissect it and say, this is what's in it for this person. This is why they're doing these things. And I think that that's what we need to continue to expose, because I don't think people realize how deep this stuff goes.
Yeah, just like with Nancy Pelosi with her husband, all these vineyards that they own. California's having trouble. They want to make sure that there's some fish that gets enough water in there, so they don't give the farmers any water. But the vineyards that Mr. Pelosi owns, getting the water that they need.
That's amazing, Bill.
It is unbelievable. But these are the things that you just have to look into. This is what we're trying to do with you at Get Real America, is to get real and let you know one of these things that are going on behind the scenes, and tell your friends. We're not making this stuff up. You can check on it yourself. You don't have to believe us. Just look it up.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to know where the people that you're going to vote for, where that money's coming from, because that's who they're owned by. Those are the things that they're going to be pushing for. And I like to support people that only take the smaller donations from people that aren't involved with a lot of these super PACs or, the shell game that we see with these nonprofit organizations where it's, Soros money being funded, but it's split between these organizations and then given to the candidates. But they're owned by Soros at that point.
What happened to all this campaign reform that was supposed to correct all that when John McCain and his crew were pushing for this so-called campaign reform, so you wouldn't have this kind of money pouring into these. It was capped at like $2,500 or something like that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They've just made loopholes. That's all they've done.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's the other thing. If they run on something and they don't continue to talk about it after they're elected, the next cycle, vote them out. Get someone else in, because these people just need to go. If they're not willing to go the extra mile and do what they say they're going to do, then they don't deserve to represent us.
And speaking of lousy governors, at the other end of the country, you have Gavin Newsom, back out in California. Friday night, he signed a piece of legislation that is totally unconstitutional, totally against the First Amendment, and is totally irresponsible, but that's what he is, and he wants to be president.
No, he wants to be a dictator.
Yeah, well, exactly. Emperor, something along those lines. But, pardon me, why does this always happen when we go on? That's what I can't figure out.
I don't know.
Before we go on, there's nothing but my apologies. He signed a law that could actually get rid of California doctors. I repeat that. He signed a law that could get rid of California doctors. They could take their license to practice if they express an opinion that is contrary to the scientific consensus on COVID.
Well, and the dangerous thing about that bill is if an action is taken on a medical license like that, this is part of my past experiences is I worked a lot with medical boards. But once one state reprimands a doctor or takes their license, it can impact multiple licenses that they have in other states. And it could really cause a domino effect depending on how this California law plays out and how other medical boards recognize it. Because if California is the gold standard of licensing, which they typically are, we go a lot off California rules in a lot of different states, it could really impact doctors' ability to practice anywhere, depending on where their licenses are located.
Yeah, Virginia just, they're trying to get rid of a law in Virginia now that they have people that actually know what they're doing running the state, that said, whatever California does, we'll duplicate it. What kind of idiocy is that? We're supposed to be independent states, a United States, but each of us, we have our own set of rules that we go by, and we can govern ourselves. We don't have to look in the mirror to some other state and see what they're doing, unless they're doing something good, like a state of Tennessee that I mentioned to at our legislature, one of our legislators recently. I said, when are we going to do something about drunk driving? Tennessee has said, if you are driving drunk and you kill somebody, you kill a parent, you have to pay child support to that family. I think that's a great piece of legislation. That is something that we can go by. But to tell doctors that if they say something that is against the contemporary scientific consensus of COVID, specifically aimed at what they call COVID misinformation. What they've been giving us for the last 2 years has been COVID misinformation. Everything they've told us was wrong. Everything we tried to tell you about was right. The vaccines don't work. COVID was not that big a deal. The masks don't work. I mean, when you go back, if you looked and juxtaposed all the first stories that came out, don't wear a mask because they don't work, and then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, wear a mask because they do work. And they told us to vaccine kids that weren't getting the disease in the first place, putting masks on kids, and now all the learning problems that we're having now from those, that's the misinformation that's been going on. And the scientific consensus, come on. When my mother was going to Savannah High School here, the science was teaching that man would never split the atom. Science changes. That's what it is. It's an ongoing research. You find out new stuff.
Yes, Bill, but then when you ignore the science and decide that you just want to make up things just because you want to have control, that's where this comes in, because we already knew all those things. And the other thing that really bothers me is the CDC came in quietly and changed a lot of their recommendations.
Yep.
And no one's talking about that.
We are.
Yes, we are.
As the late great Milton Friedman, one of the greatest economists of all times, said that you could take any three letters out of the alphabet and it's probably a federal agency that ought to be eliminated, and the CDC is one of them. The FBI ain't far behind.
Yep, I also think the FDA needs to go. I think that they have done a lot of damage, and I think that they've encouraged our population to be less healthy.
When you start mixing science with politics, it screws up everything. And we have the same thing going on today, because today the Supreme Court is being seated with the new Justice Ketanji Kamanda, who is it? Brown
Jackson.
Brown Jackson, yes. Who doesn't know what a woman is.
She's not a scientist. She's
That's
not a
true.
biologist.
Yeah,
Sorry.
biologist. Yeah,
Biologist.
Yeah,
Mhm.
biologist. So
I think that that's very dangerous, Bill, especially when you see how political she already is and that she's willing to toe that line. And this is a lifetime appointment. I think that that's really, really scary. And I know that everyone was scared with the picks that Trump had, but at least that
I was delighted.
well, but the way that they painted these people,
Oh,
right?
of course.
Kavanaugh probably got the worst of it. Amy Coney Barrett, they tried to come after her. I mean, she's got like 7 kids. 2 of them are adopted. I mean, it's just unreal how they'll try to spin things. But with Ketanji Brown Jackson, it is very dangerous when someone's not even willing to say what a man or a woman is, especially when we know that these cases are probably going to reach the Supreme Court in the next 3 to 5 years.
I wonder if some Trump supporter was caught outside of her house with a gun, threatening to assassinate her, and people were out demonstrating in front of her house. I wonder what the DOJ would do about that, because they haven't done anything about not
Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh's. Is it Kavanaugh's house?
Yep,
yeah,
it's Kavanaugh.
At Brett Kavanaugh's house.
Who has two children as well that
Yeah.
were
Terrifying.
involved in that plot too. He was going to take out the whole family, and he also had 2 other judges on his list. So, I mean, you have to be able to hold these people accountable in the same way, because if it was a white person, regardless if they were a Trump supporter or not, they would paint them that way. And then, they would demonize a whole population. And we have got to stop doing that. We cannot continue to demonize people based off who they voted for or what they believe in. That's not what we were founded on, Bill.
And they're trying to intimidate the court. That's exactly what this is all about, to come up with rulings that they want from the left side. And let's get an update now. We're going to run a montage of the update that we have from all of the networks on the research or the investigation to find out who leaked that information about the Roe v. Wade policy that they were going to come up with that caused all this trouble to begin with. Here are the network reports.
Yeah, I don't think
Want
we
to
have
see
any.
them again?
We do not have any because that story just went away. It's completely gone.
Now,
no one's talking about that, Bill.
You could almost count. You can't fill the fingers of both hands counting people who would actually know that information. So by now we should know. We should know who that was that leaked that information. Something that had never been done in the history of the court in over 250 years.
And once again, we're hearing silence on this, Bill. Where, I think that this would have happened 5 years ago. We would have heard like that. But because of how divided we've gotten in this country, and whoever's pulling the strings up in Washington, it's very dangerous because they are controlling what's able to be figured out and what's happening.
Bet that person's going to get a great book deal.
A great book deal. I'm sure that they're already getting kickbacks for something.
And there'll be some sort of a new commentator on BSDNC or the Communist News Network. One of the two.
Yeah, looking forward to that, Bill. Well, and I think something, we talked a little bit about the hurricane earlier, and, the word equity, I think, is, number one, overused. Number two, it's not realistic. But Kamala Harris, she talked about how we have to be equitable in the way that we disperse hurricane relief to people, and that they would need to go to minority communities first. I don't know if you saw that.
Minority communities and communities of color.
Yes.
I thought minority communities were communities of color, but maybe not. I think white people are becoming the minority now.
Yes, Bill. Well, also, it's who's impacted, who needs it first. It has nothing to do with, what color of your skin you are. That's, based off of what you deserve. I think that that's ridiculous, Bill.
That's because it's ridiculous.
Okay, well, just checking.
And of course, that incompetent Boubette is unbelievable. So the border czar, Tsarina, I guess it is, she so far has yet to go to the border. But, she did go to one border.
I think she's been to a couple borders, actually. Yes. I think we saw her at the Ukrainian-Russia border, and I think we've also seen her now at the South Korea-North Korea border.
Yes, and told people what a wonderful alliance that we had with the Republic of North Korea.
Was that a Freudian slip, or is that true, Bill? I don't know. You never know with these people.
It's like when they are now, of course, have you seen how the media has twisted themselves into pretzels? defending Joe Biden for asking for a dead person to come up on stage or something, or ask where a dead person is?
Here's the thing. It's so sad, Bill, that we're, number one, that they're willing to cover it up when we know how dangerous it is when someone is in a condition like that where they can't decipher things. They don't live in reality. And he's the one that, quote unquote, is making decisions. I don't understand how they were shouting 25th Amendment for Trump, but now we hear nothing except for, he was just really thinking about her and top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he was asking for Jackie.
Or just as F. Chuck Todd on NBC on Beat the Press yesterday, along with one of the other communists that he had on. It just a slip of the tongue. It happens to everybody. Really? You just actually did less than a month ago did a kind of a eulogy and memorial for this woman, and you're asking where she is. That beats his in 2008 when he was running for vice president, asking a guy in a wheelchair to stand up.
Well, and
so that topped that one, and that was when he had some sort of cognitive powers.
He's never been the most intelligent person in the room. I will say
Not
that.
the brightest bulb in the chandelier, no.
No. So the fact that he's president is just mind-blowing to me, especially when you watch old videos of him from even the early 90s. He still is just not very intelligent.
No, he's not.
And so now you see him also with this decline that he's having, and it's getting worse, Bill.
But he'll be glad to repeat what anybody else says, because he's been accused of plagiarism so many times. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
He used to get kicked out of school for that.
Right. Well, and the stories that he tells that have been debunked, that he continues to tell, that we all know are lies, it's just like, how can you guys believe this person or anything that he's telling you? As well as just the memes online of this, Bill, it's not funny, but one person cropped in an ice cream cone, and it was like on a fish hook, and they used it to guide him out of the area in this meme. And yes, that is funny, but at the same time, how disturbing that this is our president.
Well, the worst part, we're talking about national security here.
Exactly.
And how the media could actually be in lockstep with the Democrat Party and stand up for this guy, because had Donald Trump done something like this, because I remember every time I turned on one of those left-wing networks, they had some psychiatrist or psychologist on about Donald Trump, that when he did something, and they were diagnosing him about how bad, about what a bad mental condition he was in, and that he needed serious psychiatric help and ought to be taken away in chains, in an orange jumpsuit or whatever. He goes to West Point, and he's in dress shoes with the cadets, and he slips on a little bit of an incline. He's going down, and it's kind of slippery. It was wet that day or something, and he slipped a little bit. And they talked about he's losing his balance, and it just went on, and you couldn't believe how bad it was getting, with how much they were criticizing Donald Trump's mental capacity as well as his physical abilities. And this guy can't walk and chew gum at the same time, and he makes all these gaffes like asking dead people to show up. It is unbelievable.
Well, I think you also have to look at, when you look at Obama, he was a fairly young president for us, but at the end of those 8 years, how much he had aged was very significant. Mm-hmm. And then you're putting someone in office that is already fairly old, and we're into year
cognitive
2.
Powers. He's already had two brain aneurysms.
Yeah. So, I think that it's very dangerous, Bill, especially because I think at the end of 4 years, if we see it last that long with Joe Biden, where is he? What level is he going to be at? Because the presidency ages a healthy young person, let alone someone that is already in cognitive decline.
Sure, and look at before that, look at the pictures of any president.
Yes.
Before and after, as a general rule. Donald Trump's the only guy that I know that didn't look any older.
Exactly.
In fact, a little younger, as a matter of fact.
Yes. I think he's the only one, though, that I've seen. So, After the break, we are going to jump into what Joe Biden has accomplished in the last.
That won't take long.
Yeah.
And by the way, hopefully we'll get Donald Trump back.
First of all, what I can do to make things better is bring people together. I love this country. I believe in peace through strength. If we have no strength, we're gonna have no peace. I believe in backing the blue. I believe in the Constitution. I believe that everybody should have a chance to have their faith. Do we have problems? Yes. Can we solve them? Yes. Georgia is my family. The United States is my family. So I'm gonna fight and take care of them. I'm Herschel Walker, and I approve this message.
Than anything else? You realize that? The point is, we ask so much of you. So much of you. I've not...
No one who is alive today had ever experienced a true pandemic. And I'm hoping that now that this is over, people are going to, recognize that some serious errors were made and not repeat those. That's the best you can get out of it.
So what do you tell those people?
Vote Republican. That's what a lot of them are going to do anyway.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, more than 1 million people transferred over to the Republican Party. I think in 2021 alone. Find out what that number is.
There's 159 counties in the state of Georgia. And since I got into this race, I've been visiting almost every one of them just to hear from the people. They know I'm a winner. They know that I work. Well, the way I different is I'm not a politician, never have been. I'm a country boy that grew up in Georgia. I understand Georgia, and I'm gonna fight for Georgia. We gotta get this country back together. We gotta support our police, we gotta support our military. Most of all, we gotta support our citizens. But what I am gonna do is listen to the people. So I'm gonna get out here and I'm gonna work for you. And I say what I'm gonna do and I do what I'm gonna say. And we're gonna make things happen.
Good morning and welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And we're heading down the home stretch here for this Monday morning as we welcome in the month of October. Wow.
I can't believe how quickly September went.
Well, I'm telling you. And went out with a storm, and fortunately we managed to dodge that one here in Savannah. But boy, our prayers go with the folks in Florida and even up in Myrtle Beach and Pawleys Island. They were devastated by it as well. Certainly not as bad. They got hit Cat 1, and those aren't any fun. But just what happened in Fort Myers and Cape Coral and places like that down in Florida, and I'm sure the pictures don't do it justice.
Absolutely not, Bill. And I think we'll see more to come, especially this week as they start to clean up and we'll get to see how much damage is done down there, and hopefully provide some opportunities for people that are able to go volunteer and help them get cleaned up down there.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of volunteers, and those of you who can, please do and donate. There are websites for you to donate where your money will go to where it's supposed to, and donate to the charities, as you know, Red Cross, Salvation Army, any of the AmeriCares is one of the best ones. But what's impressed me is that all of the places I was shopping over the weekend, when you were checking out, they asked you if you wanted to donate some money, and I did a roundup on some of them and did another higher donation on some others. But I was pleased to say, if you want to donate something, please do, and I think that's fantastic.
I think that's what we need to do, Bill. We need to start taking care of each other and not relying on the government.
There's
Just
that.
saying, because they don't do that good of a job. DeSantis is the exception, but not the rule, Bill.
Well, listen, speaking of Florida, Matt Gaetz, terrific congressman down there, has voted against some of these bills that supposedly are to help out the hurricane victims and things of that nature. But he actually reads through some of this stuff and realizes, oh, this is another one of these spending boondoggles that the Democrats have put in to get more money for their pet projects, and that most of that money is not going to go to relief of Florida, but it's going to be these big headlines. You're going to see it on these headlines about Gaetz voting against this relief bill for Florida.
Yep, and
pathetic.
But I think that's what people need to start doing, is pushing back, like the Gaetz and the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world.
Yep.
Regardless of how you feel, because I know that some of them are a little bit controversial, but I think it's because of the way they're painted in the media. But they're actually really good people that want to do the right thing. And I think that, if it's a 700-page bill, the vote should be no, because we know that there's a lot of bad stuff in there that's going to come back, and it's going to come back like 5 years later. Oh, we passed this 5 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's very valuable to us to use this.
Well, I'm tired of hearing about how their country, people like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene are controversial. Oh, but AOC and her Confederates aren't. Trey Gowdy actually talked about this last night. He said when he was a kid delivering newspapers, he actually looked at a story about the Supreme Court. Speaking of Supreme Court starting today, the Supreme Court started when he was delivering these papers when he was a kid, and he talked about these far right judges, but he said I never see anything about the far left judges, and aren't they there? And who makes that decision? Where's the center line, and who decides who's the far right and who's not?
The media.
And it only seems to be going in one direction.
Yep, it's always been that way, Bill. And I think that's why it's important that we see, independent news like our show pop up and really start talking about, like, wait a minute, these people are just people that believe in these things, and these people are people that believe in these things, and sometimes that includes burning down the system, which impacts all of us. So I think it's important to talk about those things. And, I do want to do a quick review. Since we are now in October, I think it's important that we do a quick review of what Biden has accomplished during his time.
Yes. Let's look at those accomplishments.
Yes.
We're 2 years into the Biden presidency. America is on the wrong track. So how did we get here? On day one, Joe Biden moved to kill domestic energy production. Then, with the help of Democrats in Congress, he set out on a massive spending spree, ignoring warning signs about inflation.
This is going to potentially overheat the economy.
If you overheat the economy longer and longer, you get more and more inflation.
Inflation skyrocketed, reaching the highest rate in 40 years. The Biden administration also weakened enforcement at the border and stopped building the wall. This led to a record number of migrants crossing into the country, bringing deadly drugs into communities all across America.
A growing fentanyl crisis is wreaking havoc across the nation from an increase in drug smuggling at the southern border.
The Biden administration let 2 million people illegally into the country.
Human traffickers and drug cartels are telling people you can get in.
We cannot sustain this.
Overseas, the Biden administration failed America with a disastrous and deadly withdrawal from Afghanistan.
13 brave Americans killed at the Kabul airport.
This is our leaders' fault.
This is a horrible wound to our reputation.
This emboldened our enemies.
Our adversaries are going to be testing the United States of America after this debacle. Russia and the Baltics, China and Taiwan.
This year, with the economy now in recession, Democrats passed even more reckless spending, and inflation got worse.
Naming it anti-inflation is a joke.
America seems trapped in a vortex of bad economic news.
As gas prices go up, his approval rating goes down.
When you shut down the Keystone Pipeline, what did you really think would happen?
Record crime, record homicides.
They have been soft on crime. They've been terrible for the communities that they say they have in their focus.
Record inflation, endless spending, an economy in recession, open borders, and surging crime. That is the Biden legacy in just 2 years.
They couldn't have done worse if they had planned to do worse.
Nothing is built, nothing is back, and nothing is better.
He has made one bad decision after another.
Senate Republicans are focused on America's top priorities, while Democrat mismanagement and failure has resulted in runaway inflation, reckless spending, record crime, and chaos at our southern border. A new Senate Republican majority is prepared to lead in a different direction.
That was a little breakdown of some of the things that he has achieved.
I'm glad the Republicans have been waiting for him to grow a backbone for some time now. They still need to, there's still a lot of firebranding that they can do, but that's a good step in the right direction to show what a pathetic situation that we're in and how disgusting this leadership or lack thereof has been and how quickly it has happened, because we're not even 2 years in yet.
I know, and the destruction is just unbelievable. They're saying that it could take us 8 to 10 years to turn this around.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to be something easy, and there are not going to be a lot of easy decisions moving forward. And that's if we're able to take back the Senate and the House and stop some of the stuff going on. And the best we could hope for is to turn Biden into a lame duck president.
Yeah, that's the only issue, because, I mean, he's still going to be there till January of 2025 if he lives. And I believe me, I'm casting no aspersions here as far as that goes. No malice, but the guy is in very poor health. And you can see his cognitive abilities are going downhill like on a ski slope.
Why have we not seen one report from his doctor since he's gotten in office? We've seen none of his medical information, which they screamed at the top of their lungs about Trump not being, physically or mentally fit. They talked about how Trump ate so many. He does like McDonald's and Diet Coke. I have heard that, but know.
And remember, he gets 2 scoops of ice cream, and everybody else only gets 1.
Oh, geez.
We care.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and not only that, Trump. And they talked about how he was obese and blah, blah. And it's like, oh, my goodness. It just went on and on and on. However, we can't even get one report about how Joe Biden's health is, both cognitively and, physically. Because he's shuffling around. He's not doing that well, Bill.
Well, Brittany, if it weren't for double standards, as we know, the Democrats wouldn't have any standards at all. Yes. Meanwhile, we talk about national security. Now we're talking about the U.S. Army. There is subjecting unvaccinated soldiers to punishments, including prohibiting off-base travel, halting promotions, enforcing involuntary terminations from the service, which active duty service members claims it is a strategy to pressure them to abandon their deeply held religious beliefs. They're not being out there. They're told you either get the Fauci ouchie or you're out of here. And that is, and we're talking about how bad a reaction that we're seeing from young people who have had the Fauci ouchie, from heart problems to who were otherwise perfectly healthy until they got this damn vaccine.
Yeah, Bill, and I think the other thing is you're seeing Biden, for example. Just think this person in Florida, in the National Guard, who is actually going to be kicked out, I believe it's this week, because he refuses to get the vaccine. But Biden was just praising him because he saved a bunch of people in Florida. And I think we've all seen the videos of these people literally just killing over. I mean, people are dropping dead, and they have a sad, sudden adult death syndrome. And that's not normal, Bill.
And what about the pregnancy issues that we're having?
They're seeing a lot more miscarriages. I believe it's 40% higher than it was prior to the vaccine. So a lot of miscarriages, a lot of, fetal deaths as well.
Just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Just happened around the time the vaccine came out. It's very weird. But they kept telling women, and shame on people for doing this, it's safe for you. It's not going to go into your breast milk. It's not going to, it stays in it where it's supposed to stay.
That's what they.
I'm not sure, Bill.
It just it goes beyond the pale that we're having to put up with this. And we're supposed to be a representative republic, and these people are supposed to be taking an oath to stand up for the Constitution. They're supposed to be giving us guidance. They are supposed to be following the Constitution and the laws. They're not supposed to be dictators, and that's what we have.
Exactly. And I think when you start looking at what we actually should be asking these people to make laws for or against, they're way outside what they should be able to do at this point in time, Bill. And we need to keep talking about the things that they are doing that impacts all of us, and why we should push back against a lot of the stuff that they're doing.
Indeed. Well, we'll try to solve those problems tomorrow.
Yes, we'll be back then. So remember to follow us on YouTube, Vimeo, GRA News Media, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Out of time for today, but tell all your friends you can watch it whenever you want to, and we'll be back tomorrow. Get real, America.